Hello again, listeners. This is Kevin, and welcome to another episode of Get Fit Guy. I received a nice email last week from a listener who is a philosophy graduate and how much enjoyment they took from the episode on Frankfurt and free will, which was last week's episode. But they also noted my use of gender-neutral language when referencing an email. And it got me to thinking about this show. I don't think that in 2024, Get Fit Guy is an appropriate name for the show. I would much rather see a gender-neutral title. Firstly, because I think it's important to be an ally, but secondly, because it's kind of backed the show into a corner where it can only ever be hosted by a guy. What do you think? Do you think that this is the right name for the show, or maybe we should look for a gender-neutral title? I'd be interested to hear what listeners think. Please email me and let me know if you agree. Not sure what the show should be called, but I definitely think gender neutral is the way to go. Okay, on to this week's show, which unsurprisingly is philosophical. I read back last week's notes, and I think perhaps it might have been too much into what the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein called a language game. That being that if you aren't in the same language game as I am, perhaps it's hard to play along. Philosophy has a lot of words that it shares with other subject matter areas and with general language, but mean very specific and different things. So I'll do my best to try and steer away from language games. Anyway, this past couple of weeks, I've been thinking about the meaning of things and the meaning in things. Sometimes people are just so keen to identify things such as relationships and put them into a box. I think it's because as humans, we all love things to be clearly defined. But I would argue that these definitions rob us of the beauty that we can find in the things themselves. It's very unlikely that anything in life fits very clearly into the defined borders of a box we want to put them in, and that they don't overlap with other things or have leakage into other areas. Take friendship, for example. Sometimes we can have feelings for friends that might not entirely fit into a platonic box. They could be romantic feelings, lustful feelings, or even feelings like they're part of your family. And that's okay. I think it's easier and better to embrace our own feelings than it is to try and squash them back down and place them into a box and cut the edges off them that might be hanging over the sides. And I think it's the same in fitness. What we have to understand is that fitness is an industry, and it exists to provide some kind of monetized solutions. So there's providers out there that will tell you how their fitness brand, their fitness equipment, their gym, their martial art, their supplement range, and so on, is superior to others that are in the same space. But what makes one thing better than another thing? And I will argue that it's down to where you look for the answer. Are you looking for the answer of things or the answer in things? In philosophy, a lot of time is devoted to this question, mainly, what is the meaning of life? And there are many different takes on this. One of the most analysed in philosophy is from the French philosopher and author Albert Camus, and it's called The Myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was condemned by the gods to forever push a giant rock up a mountainside, only for it to roll all the way back down again. For Camus, this scenario is a metaphor for life. It's pointless, it's futile, and it's a meaningless struggle that comes to absolutely nothing in the end. It's absurd, and it's beyond reason and logic. But this is not what's important. And as per previous weeks, a philosophical discussion on the meaning of life cannot be covered in a 10-minute podcast, so this is a very simplified overview. But what is important is not the meaning of life itself, but it's that we find good in the meaning in life. We should take a subjective view rather than trying to apply an objective view to all of humanity. The meaning in life is down to each of us individually, not collectively. It's about finding things that actively engage you, things that you're passionate about, excited and gripped by, intellectual pursuits, moral achievements, creative enterprises, relationships, friendships, family, cultivating personal talents and virtues. These are all projects of worth that bring meaning in our lives. And I think this idea of the meaning of things versus the meaning in things is incredibly important. It's a distinction that frees us from spinning our wheels about what objective absurdity is, and it allows us to embrace subjective goodness. Now, I can argue in fitness terms until the cows come home that strength training is way more important to aging populations, by definition all populations, than aerobic training or mobility training. But if someone hates strength training and finds no joy at all in it, then what is the point? Going to the gym after a day at work or waking up at 5 a.m. to go and do something you really despise is itself absurd. If you really enjoy running or hiking or martial arts or golf, then who really cares that some self-proclaimed expert out there says that objectively doing this thing that you cannot stand doing is good for you? I just can't get on board with that at all. So I would encourage everyone to think about that. What is the meaning in fitness? Not what is the meaning of fitness. Because if you look at the meaning of fitness, it's only going to lead us to the same situation as the meaning of life. Something that's hard, probably not really that enjoyable, and in the end, it's all for nothing. It's a much better use of our time to find value in the things we do and not value of the things we do. A further argument might be that the best way forward could be to try and find the intersection of both. You should be where objectivity and subjectivity meet. Is there an objective meaning in fitness? Well, my claim would be that it's to resist the aging process. And strength training is the best way to do this. So what if the subjective meaning for someone is to make friends and have a social each week, such as golf? Well, perhaps there are strength clubs or classes at a nearby gym where you can do strength training, but also have that social connection. That might be an intercept point of objective and subjective meaning. I don't know, because I can't tell you what your subjective meaning is, because any information I can marshal on this would be subjective to me, not you. And all I can try to do here each week is give listeners some tools and some ways to use those tools. And that's what I see philosophy as. Tools for life and ideas on how to use those tools. I hope that everyone with the new year coming up can reflect on their subjective meaning in fitness and go into 2025 ready to fully embrace that and be happy. If you have any questions or just want to say hi, please email me, getfitguy@quickanddirtytips.com. Get Fit Guy is a Quick and Dirty Tips podcast. Thanks to the team, Morgan Christensen, Holly Hutchins, Brian Getchis, Davina Tomlin, and I've been your host, Kevin Dunn. If you have any questions for me, you can also voicemail me at 510-353-3104 or send me an email at getfitguy@quickanddirtytips.com. For more information, visit quickanddirtytips.com or check out the show notes in your podcast app.